brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days.
Howdy, 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 everyone. Welcome to the daily All Hat No Cattle News Rodeo. I'm your host, Hat. Hello, chat. Hello, YouTube. Hello, DLive. Hello, Trovo. Of course, we will only be sticking with the latter two after an hour from now when we do the after show. YouTube has certain things you can't say on it, and since they demonetized me, I owe them damn little as it is. I do appreciate, of course, all of my YouTube followers who have been with me for quite some time. And I would also like to give a special shout out, and I hope I remember to do so at the end, to my regular Rumble and Gab TV viewers. I really appreciate all of you taking the time out in your day to watch the show after I post it. And again, I hope I remember to do this at the end of the show because I normally only have the second half available for the Gab TV audience. Okay, folks, I've got a lot today, as I always do. A couple of great Babylon Bee pieces. Also, a survey in about cancel culture. A story that I teased yesterday and did not get to. Very, very, very mea culpa on my part. I'll have that straight up. And then also some border news, as you might expect. And a lot to do beyond that. So first, let's get into our first Babylon Bee bookend of the day. This is the one on the left from their family section. Parents disguising kids as illegal immigrants so they can receive in-person training. And here we have a picture of a middle schooler with the ubiquitous large backpack and a Mexican sombrero, and of course the de rigueur handlebar mustache. Dateline San Diego, California. Upon hearing that San Diego teachers were providing instruction to migrant children, but not American citizens, many clever parents began disguising their kids as illegal immigrants in hopes that their kids could finally see the inside of a classroom. Okay, Aiden, remember, if they ask you what your name is, just say, "No hablo inglés," said one parent as she dropped her kid off near the Mexican border in Chula Vista. "And don't pick at your fake mustache. It'll fall off. Don't forget your poncho. I packed you a burrito and some quesadillas for lunch. Love you." After waving goodbye to the kids, the parents peeled out in their minivans as they experienced their first taste of freedom in over a year, the kids happily being taught by teachers as the moms went out and got mimosas for brunch. Unfortunately, the kids do have to sleep in cages with foil blankets now, but the parents say it's a sacrifice well worth making. All right, the Babylon Bee, everyone. A direct swipe at the San Diego's Teachers Union deciding that they can teach legal immigrants packed into the San Diego Convention Center, but screw the taxpayers' children who have not been in school for over a year now and will not be seeing the inside of a classroom for at least another 2 weeks. But who am I to say otherwise? All right, with my personal conceit, we shall start off the market. The Dow just closed below 33,000 today, down 0.25%. The Dow was trading in very tight, a tight range today, a little bit above, a little bit below the 33,000 mark. It did not hold an earlier rally. There was a sharp sell-off at the end, as far as the graph goes, but as far as numbers go, it was not that big of a percentage. But the Dow did lose ground at the end of the day. The S&P 500 was up a fraction. The NASDAQ was up as much as 2% today. There was a bit of a sell-off at the end as well. It closed at 1.5% over today's opening, well above the 13,000 mark. Gold did see an increase today, finally breaking above the 17,000 an ounce mark that it fell below yesterday. Crude oil is down a full 2%. And Bitcoin is holding steady right around 58,800. A very, very small drop so far today. You may know Bitcoin is being picked up by more and more outlets. I believe I read Monday that Visa is going to start allowing payments to credit card balances be made in Bitcoin. And I think PayPal is going to start doing something in Bitcoin as well. Of course, the big thing is with Bitcoin is it going to be left alone, or is it going to be regulated out of existence? There's probably not going to be much of a middle ground. That is the big thing with Bitcoin, so wait and see. That's my take on it, of course. My take on it. Okay, so the story I teased yesterday, and again, my sincerest apologies for not getting to it. That is really, really very unprofessional of me. But let's just dive into it right now. This is something from the Washington Post from yesterday. I am looking at an archive version of the Post. I did not go to the Washington Post itself. Of course not. But the headline is, new accounts detail how New York health officials were told to prioritize coronavirus testing of people connected to Andrew Cuomo. And this article is based on whistleblower accounts from about 7 people closely connected to the testing facilities that were run by New York State in the early days of the coronavirus pandemic and the scrambling for testing that was underway in New York. And originally there was only one center that was available to process tests, and it was ultimately expanded to dozens more. New York has gotten a pretty good handle on testing, as you might expect, but at the time, tests were few and far between, and it would take upwards of a week to get your results back. So if you're trying to do contact tracing, a week's delay in getting your results is basically a lifetime. By that time, the disease has probably kicked in, and you're well underway to developing symptoms. So according to these whistleblowers, there was an inner circle of Cuomo people, people referred to by such things as VIPs, high priority, friends of the governor, things like that. And various testers were told to clear the decks if one of these people were coming in for a test, and to make sure that their results were handled in a priority manner, that they got their results within a day, as opposed to other New Yorkers waiting up to a week. Also, state police were used to take tests from private homes and hotel rooms and rush them to the lab. And according to the story, Chris Cuomo, the governor's brother, also known as Fredo, to some of us, was given very, very, very high preferential VIP medical visits at his home in Southampton. Let me scroll down here to that particular part of the article. By the way, Letitia James has recommended a new special counsel look into these allegations. Now, of course, people with the Cuomo administration are saying there was no VIP program. These people were all vital to the implementation of the governor's COVID response. So what you're saying just didn't happen. But let me get to that bit here about Chris. Down just a little more here. Excuse me. I had it flagged earlier and I clicked on the page, so that means I lost it. Yeah, just a little more. Here we go. Among Cuomo relatives, Chris Cuomo's family received attention that appeared to go beyond that of others, receiving multiple visits at their Hamptons home from Department of Health physician Eleanor Adams, according to two people familiar with the visits. At the time, Adams had a senior role for the state, coordinating testing issues for high-risk settings such as nursing homes. Cuomo's home in Southampton is roughly 90 miles from New York City. Adams, who is now a senior advisor to a Cuomo health expert, did not respond to repeated requests for a comment. Zucker hung up on a Post reporter last week and has declined to address the descriptions of preferential testing. Quote, "You're asking professionals who took an oath to protect the patient's privacy to violate that oath and compromise their integrity." Let's see. So according to another reference to this article, I saw that person from the health department, the one who was in charge of coordinating testing at the nursing homes, she would sometimes spend, quote, hours at Chris Cuomo's place after he had tested positive for the virus. And of course, he maintained strict quarantine while visiting property they were developing away from their home. He maintained such strict quarantine that he was able to get into a verbal altercation with a guy on a bicycle because that's what you do when you're in quarantine. But who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? So anyway, the story from yesterday that I missed. Okay, let's get into some social media stuff here, some censorship, and some possible good news from, let's see, do I have Mike's story here? Yes, I do. And some possible good news for Mike Lindell's upcoming platform. First, according to sources, YouTube is removing the dislike feature from videos if the video owner, publisher, so wishes. Now, why would you want to remove dislikes? Because all of the Biden administration videos are getting downvoted at ratios upwards of 8 to 9 to 1. Often, if they get any views at all. That's another thing you will probably see is the view counter being able to be disabled by the publisher of the video. So, how bad is it? Let's go to this video. 5 ways the American Rescue Plan will help you.
The American Rescue Plan is passed.
Okay, this is from the White House, which has 1.89 million subscribers. And as you can see, let me blow it up for you. This video has a grand total of 296 likes and 2,500 dislikes. That's over 8 times of a ratio, if I can do my math. No, no, I'm sorry, 6 times. 6 times. 6, 7. I can't do math. I'm sorry, guys. I can't do math. What am I trying to do? Anyway, 2,500 divided by 300. You can do the math. A lot. It's a whole lot. And so YouTube is basically bowing to the Biden administration and saying that we won't have to be able to put up with these nasty downvotes anymore. YouTube is saying that these are coordinated, that they are disingenuous downvotes, that they are not actual dislikes of these videos. Of course, you can say whatever you want. Another thing you might notice on this video, let me blow it up here. Very bottom, you may notice, comments are turned off. Learn more. When was the last time you saw a White House video from this administration that allowed comments? My recollection is Never. Never, never, never. But maybe that's just me. And hello, Laura. Welcome to the chat. Nice to see you. All right, continuing along. Another thing about the White House. Remember the Trump administration, when you could, and previous administrations, you could fill out a petition to the White House, and if it got, I believe it was over 100,000 signatories, it was brought to the attention of the White House team, and they would look into it. Not saying they would necessarily act on it, but that was the promise. Over 100,000 signatures, and it would get the attention of the White House team. So, I typed in to my DuckDuckGo search engine earlier today, petition the White House. And as you can see here, at the very top, there is a link, and it says https, etc., petitions.whitehouse.gov. And below that, you can see here, petition the White House on issues that matter to you, and https, blah, 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 petitions.trumpwhitehouse. Okay, so you figure that was in the Trump administration. We can certainly count on that being in the 46 asterisk administration. Right? Wrong. Wrong. No, you do not get to petition the current administration. They have taken that off the White House page. It's gone. I looked and looked and looked. There's no way for you to submit a petition to the White House now. You can leave a comment. They did not turn that off, but I cannot vouch as to how often they read them. Well, but yes, folks, the ability to petition the White House has been taken away by the most honest and transparent administration in the history of U.S. government. Just ask them. Just ask them. So going along with censorship, the Democrats are suddenly talking big tech breakup, big tech antitrust pushes. Got an article here by Nihal Krishan, a tech reporter for the Washington Examiner. Top Democrats lay out priorities for big tech antitrust push. So you would think, okay, the Democrats are coming along. We need to break up big tech. We need to get competition going again. We need to stop all of these vertical monopolies and engender more robust competition in the tech sector, right? To a certain extent, the Democrats agree with that. Now, certain Republicans are not on board with massive breakups of these companies. They have their reasons, and the Democrats have theirs for the breakups. I'm personally in favor of at least, judicious breakups, getting things like Instagram out from underneath Facebook, things like that. But the Democrats aren't going to stop at just breakups. There are a number of things they're looking at in committee right now. And they're possibly thinking about passing at least 4 or 5 bills targeting big tech. But as you may not be surprised to learn, several of those have to do with big tech censorship. The Democrats don't think big tech is censoring enough. They think there's too much, quote, misinformation and disinformation out there from, quote, fringe extremist sources, which of course means Republicans and MAGA folks, and conservatives and libertarians. Let's not forget, a number of progressives have had their voices silenced on social media as well, the big tech platforms. If you were an anti-war progressive back in the day, within just a few years, you were kicked off. That was a big thing when YouTube and Facebook started their initial purges. Anti-war pages were gone. Just saying. The Democrats think there should be more censorship. This article mentions a study that was done some time ago. This is from the same reporter, Nihal Krishan, Washington Examiner, from beginning of last month. And it quotes a study put out by the New York University Stern Center for Business and Human Rights. Okay, NYU is not noted as a hotbed of conservatism, just in case you were wondering. Now, according to this study, most social media outlets boost right-of-center content rather than censoring it. You got that? I was demonetized because YouTube boosts right-of-center content. My channel was throttled significantly back in May of 2018 because YouTube promotes right-of-center content. Let's not forget that. I've got a story coming up on how Facebook and Instagram have determined that even the voice of President Trump is now verboten on their platforms. That's coming up in a bit. But now the study points out that the top 5 to 8, I should say the top 5 out of the top 8 sites on social media, as the normal rankings are done, are usually conservative sites. The Daily Wire leading the list, Dan Bongino coming in a good second, or at least a very, very solid third, things like that. But we all know that whistleblowers from these outlets have proved that places like the Daily Wire have been blacklisted on a number of occasions and had their views throttled. That happened to the Bill Whittle site quite extensively. In fact, go to YouTube and go to the Bill Whittle page. Notice how many subscribers they have. Hundreds of thousands of subscribers, which is small in and of itself. They have a lot more people on their BillWhittle.com web platform. But look at the number of views that BillWhittle.com gets. They're in the thousands. Sometimes in the hundreds, just after the video comes out for the first few hours. The views are pathetic. People are not being notified of when these go up. They are not being notified. Look at what they did to NTD, the broadcasting arm of the Epoch Times. They demonetized NTD. They constantly pull stories from them because YouTube feels they quote-unquote crossed the line, et cetera, et cetera. Steven Crowder was just demonetized yet again, and he put up a video on his Crowder Bits channel yesterday explaining what had just happened to the Steven Crowder channel, how YouTube had given him a strike for very spurious reasons and is preventing him from uploading for a week. He explained that on his Crowder Bits channel, and YouTube yanked that video in clear violation of their terms of service. They said they yanked it because he was going around a ban. It is absolutely written, and you can call YouTube if you have the opportunity and ask them, if you have a second channel and the primary channel is blocked, as long as what you put up on the second channel isn't the original piece that was blocked or isn't in the same format as the blocked channel, you're good to go. I have that from Tim Pool himself. And all Crowder did was do a handheld phone video of him explaining how YouTube had yanked them and that YouTube could expect some response, legal response, very, very soon. And YouTube yanked that video in clear violation of their terms of service. But according to the New York University Stern Center for Business and Human Rights, none of that's happening. None of that's happening. In fact, one of the top Democrats in the committees that I was just discussing in the previous article is saying that they won't entertain any motions from Republicans on the committees regarding right-wing censorship because, according to them, and I'm quoting, that's a problem that doesn't exist. So let's just keep all that in mind, folks. It's not happening. It's not happening. Democrats in Congress and the New York University Stern Center for Business and Human Rights said so. Electric Dog says in the D-Live chat, in 2016, I could tell from viewer counts and likes that Trump was headed for a landslide. I could tell from his Facebook and from YouTube. Absolutely. Absolutely. But we are now watching the most popular president in the history of the U.S., folks. So certainly those dislikes are all Russian trolls. They've got to be. They've got to be. So another thing about this disinformation that we're supposed to be worried about with right-wing sites, disinformation, misinformation, conspiracy theories, yada, yada, yada. Okay, and we never have to worry about left-wing sites doing that. So I did a little test, again, using my trusty DuckDuckGo search engine. All I typed in was Bill 202, Jim Crow 2.0. And I got dozens of articles quoting Stacey Abrams and Congressional Black Caucus Democrats calling the Georgia Voter Reform Bill, Bill 202, Jim Crow 2.0, without any sense of irony whatsoever. Every now and then you'd get one that would point out the hypocrisy of it, but then you'd get something like the Daily Beast that would just back up Stacey Abrams all the way to the hilt, that the lie that you could not drink water or eat in lines at polling stations in Georgia that the polls were going to be closed at 5 o'clock. Lie after lie after lie that were picked up by the media credulously, almost used the wrong word. Those abound on the internet. They abound, they abound, they abound. And here's a headline from, or I should say the first paragraph from a BuzzFeed article. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp on Thursday signed into law a series of controversial voting restrictions decried by Democrats as Jim Crow 2.0, and he did so alongside a group of white men and in front of a painting of a plantation where black people were once enslaved. No disinformation there, folks. No disinformation there whatsoever. All right. So here's another part of the censorship. This is what I teased for the YouTube thumbnail today. But I do have to point something out before I get into it. It's a copy editing mistake that drives me crazy. The Daily Wire, God love them, Picassonos and I have been subscribers to the Daily Wire for years. My Leftist Tears Tumblr looks like it was run over by a car, because basically it was. I've dropped it in the driveway so many times, it is scratched up beyond repair, and part of the lid is chipped. Luckily, the seal wasn't broken. But the Daily Wire, specifically Amanda Prestigiacomo, puts together a very good article about what happened to an interview between Laura Trump, President Trump's daughter-in-law, and President Trump himself. My problem with this article, though, is not the reporting, it's the fact that they spelled Laura with a U. It is not Laura Trump, it is Lara Trump, Lara. That is a pathetic mistake, an absolute pathetic mistake. It took me 10 seconds on DuckDuckGo to confirm that it's spelled Lara. But for some reason, Amanda Prestigiacomo doesn't have the same access to an internet search engine as I do. God love her. Again, it's a great story, but when you make mistakes like that, it really is some serious amateur hour in the newsroom. It's just pathetic, absolutely pathetic, sad, woeful, and disdainful. All right, now let's get into the article itself. So, Lara Trump had an interview with the president, and it was posted on Instagram and Facebook. And clips from the interview have been removed from both platforms. Just boom, yanked. Here's what we understand Lara Trump heard from Facebook. Quote, "We are reaching out to let you know that we removed content from Lara Trump's," and again, Lara spelled wrong, "Lara Trump's Facebook page that featured President Trump speaking. In line with the block we placed on Donald Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts, further content posted in the voice of Donald Trump will be removed and result in additional limitations on the account." So, folks, you can't even have President Trump's voice on Instagram and Facebook. Not even his voice is allowed. Never mind the content. You can't even play his voice. And to quote Laura from the headline of this article, "We are one step closer to Orwell's 1984. And now from Instagram, we heard this. "I saw on Lara Trump's Instagram account that she will be hosting an interview with President Trump tonight. Just a reminder that content posted on Facebook and Instagram in the voice of President Trump is not currently allowed on our platforms, including new posts with President Trump speaking, and will be removed if posted, resulting in additional limitations on accounts that posted it. This guidance applies to all campaign accounts and pages, including Team Trump and other campaign messaging vehicles on our platforms, and former surrogates." Now, you may remember that President Trump's CPAC speech from back in February was yanked off of YouTube. They yanked it off us here. We covered that live, and YouTube pulled it and gave me a warning. They did not give me a strike, but they gave me a warning because President Trump said the no-no about the election, that I can't speak of any further than that. Otherwise, I'll get yanked again. But Right Side Broadcasting Network, which carried basically all of CPAC Live, except for some man-on-the-street stuff that got it in the way. And we wound up finding a way around that. But they broadcast President Trump's speech live. And not only did YouTube yank the video from CPAC's coverage that day, But they also gave RSBN a strike and shut down their ability to upload and live stream for 2 weeks. But again, there's no right-wing censorship going on the internet, folks. That's a problem that doesn't exist. We're told so. The NYU told us. Democrat congresspeople are telling us. So whatever you think is happening is not happening. Michael Scriven says in the YouTube chat, I disagree with Laura Trump. We are all the way into 1985. I like that. I like that. Was that a sequel? I need to find out if Orwell wrote a sequel. I'm half kidding, but who knows? Maybe he wrote under a different name. I understand George Orwell is a nom de plume, but I can never remember what his actual name is. Forgive me for that. I'm very, very bad on classic literature. It's not my strong suit. Not my strong suit. But yeah, so nothing's going on there, folks. Nothing's going on there. So continuing with the censorship theme, cancel culture. Cancel culture is defined by Merriam-Webster as, and I don't like Merriam-Webster, but I'm going to use it anyway, as it's quoted in this article from The Hill written by Julia Manchester. Cancel culture is defined as, quote, the practice or tendency of engaging in mass canceling as a way of expressing disapproval and exerting social pressure. I never like when someone uses a word from the object being defined in the definition. I find that to be lazy, but if they're going to make you look up cancel twice, so be it. That's Merriam-Webster for you. But there was a poll. It's a Harvard Capps Harris poll, and it was released exclusively to The Hill just the other day. And it found that 64% of the respondents said that there is, quote, a growing cancel culture, close quote, that is a threat to their freedom, while 36% said they did not view it as a threat. Additionally, the full poll found, that 36% of Americans said cancel culture is a big problem, 32% called it a moderate problem, another 20% said it was a small problem, and only 13% said it is not a problem. Now, of course, Sharon Osbourne was kicked off the talk for daring to stick up for Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan, a very popular British media personality. He was the lead panelist on Britain's Good Morning Britain show on ITV, the independent network in Britain, not associated with the BBC. And he made the cardinal mistake of saying that he didn't believe Meghan Markle when she said that she was thinking about committing suicide and no one in Buckingham Palace would help her, would not point her towards any mental health resources. Piers Morgan said flat out that he didn't believe her, and for that he was canceled. One of his panelists on Good Morning Britain started laying into him for not believing Markle, basically because she's a person of color, although not much, but I guess every little bit helps. Just saying. And Morgan said, that's it, I've had it, I'm out of here. If I can't have an opinion without being attacked, then I don't need this job anymore. And he walked. Now, ITV says they fired him. Piers Morgan says he quit. But he is not backing down. God bless him. He is not backing down. And neither is Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne basically said, I'm being called a racist for backing up a friend who I know is not a racist. And again, these are big names. These are big, 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 big names who are having their livelihoods ripped out from underneath them. I'm not saying they don't have a safety net to fall back on, but they're the exception rather than the rule. Gina Carano had her entire career stripped from her for making a post that was maybe 60% as Nazi-related as a post that her co-star, what's his name, Pablo Pascal or whatever. I don't watch The Mandalorian. I don't know who these people are. But Pascal, that's it, Pablo Pascal. He made a direct comparison between Hitler and the Trump, quote-unquote, Trump kids in cages, even though the cage was not kids on the border. It was a group of Arab kids at an Israeli food bank waiting in line to get food. But according to Pasquale, that was a scene of kids in cages on the southern border. That was Trump's fault, and it was a direct comparison to Hitler. But that was okay. But Gina Carano making a slightly obscure reference, not even to Hitler generally, but into the beginnings of the Holocaust, and she was vilified for it. And she got, of course, picked up by the Daily Wire immediately, something that I expected, and she's doing great. But these, again, are the exceptions rather than the rule. Look at the professor who just last year killed himself after being forced out of his job at a college for making the cardinal sin of basically disagreeing with Black Lives Matter. He was vilified as a racist. He was stripped of his position. He was refused tenure, and he was in line for tenure, had been for some time. And he spiraled deeper and deeper into depression and ultimately killed himself. They took away the thing that made him whole, teaching. The editor of the newly minted editor of Teen Vogue, a complete Marxist rag that does not, in my opinion, deserve to be sold to children. I'm not in for censorship, but certain things need to be restricted. And some of the articles that they run in Teen Vogue are pure pornographic. Not the Teen Vogue it used to be. But the new editor was canceled and forced out of her job because she made a couple anti-Asian tweets 10 years ago. 10 years ago, and she was kicked out of her job. Now, would she have stuck up for you if the situations were reversed? No, of course not. She's as woke among the woke as there can be. But it also shows that the left is not above eating its own. If you can't find someone on the right who will bow to the pressure, like the idiot former lead guitarist and banjo player for Mumford & Sons did, if you can't get them to grovel at your feet and debase themselves and completely wipe away their entire sense of self-worth and humanity, then you'll move on to the easiest target after that. And if it's someone on the left, then so be it. So be it. Now, real quickly, this poll surveyed 1,945 registered voters. It was conducted between March 24th and March 25th. It was a collaboration for the Center of American Political Studies at Harvard and the Harris Poll. And the full poll will be out later this week. So that's America's view of cancel culture, and it's growing worse and worse and worse. So, responses to cancel culture. The good news, as you all heard not too long ago, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, one of the great American success stories who has ever existed, announced that he is launching a social media platform. Excuse me. And Mike Lindell did an interview with the Epoch Times. This is from Zachary Steiber. And Mike says that this platform, as he believes, will be able to handle upwards of 1 billion people. And he says if it doesn't initially, then he is planning on expanding it to reach that capacity. Again, 1 billion with a B people. Quoting Mike, it says, "It's going to be the safest, secure platform. I built it expecting it to be attacked." Now, what is the name of this new platform? Frank. Frank, the voice of free speech. I like it. I had a dog named Franks. It was named after the truck stop where I found the dog. Franks was a girl, but I named her after the truck stop. Franks was also known as the truck stop dog. She was a stray there. She subsisted on handouts, and I rescued her. I brought her home. My mom wound up going door to door to get donations to pay for surgery that Franks needed that saved her life, the original crowdfunding program. But God bless my mom. But so Mike is well on his way. According to this article, the new hope is to launch the platform as soon as the 5th of April, but no later than April 12th. So we're talking a week, less than a week, basically a week this coming Monday. Man, when I can't think, I can't think. Yes, next Monday is the 5th. And if he doesn't make it the 5th, then the following Monday is the 12th. So within the next 10 days, we should see Mike's new platform. Frank is described as a mix of YouTube and Twitter. The core idea is free speech. And Mike says, quote, "They're going to have a safe place. You won't have to walk on eggshells anymore." Projections indicate Frank will draw tens of millions of users in the first week of operation, according to Lindell. And Mike points out in this article that one of his recent documentaries was watched by 150 million people around the world. You guys will remember that video. We watched it here on the channel. I believe I did it on DLive because I could not do it on YouTube. In fact, I think at the time I wasn't broadcasting on YouTube. It may have been on Trovo now. I don't remember. But we did watch it together. It was fascinating. Some people are saying it's full of holes. Other people agree with it. I'm of the mind that Mike's coming from the right place. Even if he doesn't get everything right, Mike's coming from the right place. That's how I see him. And I love my pillows on the bed behind me right now. I absolutely love them. The pillows that we got from Helix Sleep are also really, really good. They're great for back pillows when I'm on the couch. But as far as sleeping pillows go, I love my pillows. And their towels are incredible. Absolutely incredible. I won't use another towel. Now that I've got some Mike Lindell towels in the house. So let me take you to the Placebook page, the place page for Frank right now, and read to you what it says. You can see here, Frank, the voice of free speech. Free speech is one of the hallmarks of our constitutional republic as enshrined in the Bill of Rights. It is no coincidence that nations that have free speech also have a free enterprise system and freedom of religion. Inversely, nations that deny free speech tread upon the free enterprise system and freedom of religion. Americans want to remain free. Americans are craving news and information that is not filtered through the radical worldview of today's liberal media, intelligentsia, or deep state actors. Frank, the voice of free speech, will be the platform for Americans who want to defend life, liberty, and all the freedoms that have marked America as the longest-running constitutional republic in the history of the world. On this platform, you will find a home where you can post videos, live stream television, distribute news and information, and find community and fellowship with like-minded Americans. Frank will be a home for major influencers to micro-influencers to average Americans wanting to share in the constitutional right of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. We hope you will join our community and let freedom ring. Coming soon. So that is the placeholder speech for frankspeech.com, and that is the URL, frankspeech.com. So keep an eye out for it. Again, either next Monday or the week after. Mike says in the article from the Epoch Times that one of the reasons there's been a bit of a delay is he decided to set up a secret server site to where there could not be the threat of physical attack. That is how far he's going to keep this place secure. He has several server farms, and one of them will not be disclosed. The location will not be disclosed except to a very few people, as I understand it. Now, there is one thing about the site, it mentions it here in the article. When people sign up, they'll automatically follow every influencer. They'll have the option to stop following influencers whose posts they don't want to see anymore. Quoting Mike, if they like it, they'll stick with you. If they don't, they'll just unsubscribe. I see that as being fairly onerous, but we'll see how it pans out. It may be something that is ultimately turned off, and they'll revert to the current trend, which is to allow you to pick and choose who you want to as you go, as opposed to having to unfollow people. So we'll see how that pans out, but it's a work in progress, obviously. All right, let's get into the 46 Asterisk administration and the disasters they're planning for us. As we've been talking about, Sleepy Joe wants to put together a massive infrastructure package. Unfortunately, it's not just infrastructure. They want to do green energy stuff. Supposedly will be carbon neutral by 2030, although they've yet to talk about using nuclear power to do that, which is the only way you can achieve carbon neutral electrical generation without placing huge amounts of money into inefficient and unreliable wind and solar. You may know that the Biden administration, 46 Asterisk administration, is planning on putting together a massive coastal water wind farm along the east coast of the U.S., I believe between Long Island and New Jersey. A massive wind farm using coastal winds to drive them. technically it's a good idea. They're talking about getting about 2 gigawatts of power out of it ultimately. I'm sure they won't. Now, coastal winds are fairly regular. They're fairly constant. So the planning is not bad. Here's the thing, though. People have been wanting to put wind farms on coastal areas on the East Coast for a very long time, for decades. And the homeowners whose properties are on the beaches won't let it happen. It's the perfect example of NIMBY. But in this case, instead of not in my backyard, it's not on my shore. They don't want to look out from their multi-million dollar home and stare at a bunch of windmills turning in the breeze. That's not why they live there. And they won't let it happen. So even though it sounds good on paper, I doubt seriously it's going to get off the ground. No pun intended. I just don't see it happening. But it's not just roads and bridges that they want to do with this $2 trillion package. And again, that's what they're saying right now is $2 trillion. I've heard upwards of $6 trillion, depending on how far this thing goes. I'm not kidding you, $6 trillion. So Biden was supposed to have announced this in Pittsburgh today. I didn't see it go live when I was putting the show together. So he may have done so already. I don't know. But there was a call with reporters today from the White House that outlined things that he was going to say. And I'm sure did a much better job of presenting it than he could ever hope to. But quoting them, every dollar spent on rebuilding our infrastructure during the Biden administration will be used to prevent, reduce, and withstand the impacts of the climate crisis. I don't know what that means. What climate crisis? We just went over a survey last week that showed that hurricanes, since the time the U.S. Meteorological Survey System has been reporting them, that hurricanes do not last longer than they used to. And we do not get more hurricanes than we used to. Things are pretty much on average. In fact, if I remember correctly, it said that the duration of hurricanes is actually going down compared to previous years. So I don't know where this climate crisis is coming from. And I don't know what these trillions of dollars are supposed to do to prevent it from affecting our economy. I've said, and a number of people much, much smarter than I have said, the best way around whatever climate, quote-unquote, crisis we're going to see in the future is free enterprise, is capitalism. Capitalism will be the driving force to come up with the technology changes required to obviate whatever problems this quote-unquote climate crisis is going to bring to our shores, quite literally. There's another piece of this. Again, quoting the White House. Unlike past major investments, the plan prioritizes addressing long-standing and persistent, wait for it, racial injustice. The plan targets 40% of the benefits of climate and clean infrastructure investments to disadvantaged communities. I have no idea what that means. Final piece from the article. There is $213 billion provided to build and retrofit affordable and sustainable homes, along with hundreds of billions to support U.S. manufacturing, bolster the nation's electric grid, erect nationwide high-speed broadband, and revamp the nation's water systems to ensure clean drinking water. Let's see. Did they ever fix the drinking water in Flint, Michigan, which, as I remember, was caused by a Democrat-run city, Democrat engineering department, and the billions of dollars that were thrown at it by the then Obama administration to clean it up were siphoned off through sweetheart government contracts, and the quote-unquote fixes took over a year longer than they were originally supposed to. Over a year longer. People in Flint, Michigan were drinking bottled water for months and months and months because of a quote-unquote infrastructure project that so botched the pipes that they wound up reconnecting decades-old lead pipes to the water supply system and almost killing people. You couldn't even boil the lead out of the water. You can't boil lead out of water. It's a heavy metal. It's not like a pathogen that you can boil and kill. Lead is lead, and it stays there. And if you get enough of it in you, you're going to need medical treatment to get it out. You'll need chelating therapy, which is where they actually pump a drug into your veins over time, and it leaches the heavy metal out of your system and out through waste. And I almost had to have that done because of all the indoor shooting that I used to do. I would shoot a lot of lead bullets, and that lead aerosolizes, and you breathe it in. It gets on your fingers, it gets on your lips, you put it in your mouth, and it builds up in your system. And I was getting close to needing chelating therapy, but luckily I was able to go between shooting indoors during the bad weather and outdoors during the good weather, and my levels never got dangerous. And now they're down to basically zero. They're pretty much unmeasurable since I haven't been inside a shooting range in over a year and a half. And I don't know if I'll ever get back in one, but that's another story. But one thing I'd like to know here is this part about revamping the nation's water systems to ensure clean drinking water. As I understand it, we've had the cleanest drinking water in ever during the Trump administration. In ever. But I guess that needs to be revamped because Trump did it? I don't know. And by the way, in case you missed the other day, I have seen quotes of this proposed legislation that use the term shovel ready. Yes, shovel ready. The boondoggle from the Biden-Obama administration that wasted hundreds of billions of dollars on worthless building projects that never got anything done. They were nothing more than carve-outs to unions and local municipal bosses. And yet I have seen them refer to shovel ready in descriptions of this new plan without a shred of irony. So we've got that going for us. Now, this is going to have to be broken up into at least two parts. One part, the Democrats may be able to get through with some bipartisan support. Republicans are as much for fixing roads and bridges and airports and all that as anyone else in this country, no doubt. But when it comes to the social justice stuff, that part about creating sustainable and affordable homes, I don't know what a sustainable home is. And I don't know what their definition of affordable is. Home prices are soaring and have been for several years now. And if you want to move to Florida, good luck. You can't find a house. You're probably going to wind up in a condo because houses are just gone in Florida. They are gone. And really, really good luck if you want to build a new place. Get in line. Texas has more land, so they're able to spread out their communities further. But home prices in Texas have easily doubled over the last 6 years. So I don't know what sustainable and affordable housing means, but I don't think they do either. So one of the ways they're talking about paying for these trillions and trillions of dollars in spending is tax hikes. Now you remember, in the very, very early part of the campaign last year, Biden said to a potential voter, I'm going to raise your taxes. He said it forcefully and in so many words, I'm going to raise your taxes. And he promised, and Harris promised, that they wouldn't raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year. You'll also remember that they promised $2,000 stimulus checks if we elected two Democrats from Georgia to the Senate. And everybody wound up getting $1,400 checks because that plus the $600 that you got, the $600 that you got from the plan passed at the end of the Trump administration, that counts as $2,000. So then we just heard last week that $400,000 actually means if you're in a household making $400,000. But if you're making $200,000 and your wife's making $200,000 or your partner, or whatever, and you're filing jointly, well, then that counts and you're going to get your taxes raised. Now, during the campaign, let me move this a little bit. During the campaign, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce did not back either candidate. They normally don't do so. But that didn't stop a couple subgroups of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce from doing so. The National LGBT Chamber of Commerce endorsed Biden on August 31st, 2020. And the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce endorsed Joe Biden on September 25th, 2020. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce the U.S. Chamber of Commerce did wind up backing a number of Democrat candidates for re-election. 23 freshman Democrats, as a matter of fact. Freshman Democrats who voted to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Freshman Democrats who voted to impeach President Trump. But for some reason, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce decided that placating 23 freshman Democrats and spending a lot of money to get them reelected was a good idea. Now, this is a great opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal by Kimberly Strassel. It's from last year, but I highly recommend you read it. It's a very, very good piece of insight into what has happened to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce over the past few decades. I'll put the links in the chat, the link in the chats. Michael Scriven says in the YouTube chat, it means they're going to target and damage minority communities with billions of tax dollars. Perfectly put, perfectly put. And then finally, I'll put it into the Trovo chat here. So there's the article. And again, Kimberly Strassel is one of the greats. I can't read her enough, so I highly recommend this article. But that's what the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has been up to. And now they're talking about the tax hikes as being, quote, dangerously misguided. You may know that the corporate tax rate was 35% until Trump took office. And then he lowered it to 26%. Biden is talking about pumping it back up to, 21%. 21% under President Trump. And Biden wants to jump it up to 28%. And as we all know, raising taxes, especially corporate taxes, tends to create lower job growth, lower wages, and inflation. It's happened time and time again. But far be it from the Democrats to ever understand history. Never let good facts get in the way of a great narrative, is their motto. But the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which has been backing Democrats, and also backed Neera Tanden. Remember the OMB director who finally got yanked? The nominee, I should say, who got yanked because of her insane tweets? The U.S. Chamber of Commerce was backing her. But now they're coming out and saying that Biden's tax hikes are, and I'm quoting again, dangerously misguided. This is an article by Jack Phillips in the Epoch Times. Dangerously misguided. Now, where was the U.S. Chamber of Commerce during the run-up, I should say, to amnesty for illegal aliens and increasing immigration for foreign workers? Well, they're all for it. They're all for it. Article from Breitbart, and I'll end on this, by Neil Monroe from last month. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce says its corporate members can create jobs for Americans if President Joe Biden's amnesty and migration bill provides them with, quote, the world's most talented and industrious people. Now, of course, what that really means is they want to replace high-paid Americans with foreigners who will take less money. We saw the famous incident in the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the quasi-government electrical project in the Tennessee Valley, where the administrator there was trying to undercut a lot of American jobs. I believe it was something like 24 jobs, and replace those workers with lower paid immigrant workers. And the administrator was forcing the outgoing Americans to train their replacements. President Trump got wind of it. He stepped in. He nailed the guy. He nailed a couple other TVA board members, and he prevented that from happening. But that's That's what the Chamber of Commerce is all about. In fact, quoting Jessica Vaughn, who's the policy director at the Center for Immigration Studies, quote, "They're hoarding sideline capital because they want to invest in low-wage foreign workers instead of using it to advance productivity, technology, or wages for American workers. It's a pretty straightforward admission that what they're concerned about is their own profits, not the well-being of workers or technological modernization. The Chamber thinks that Americans who are out of work are not industrious or talented and should be consigned to subsidiary jobs, welfare, and the dole for the rest of their lives." So that's the Chamber of Commerce in a nutshell, doing what it can to ruin American jobs, all in the name of profits. Now, I'm not against making a profit. Don't get me wrong. That's the lifeblood of capitalism, making a profit. That's what you're in business for, ultimately. But simple social governance is a thing. All right, let's move on to the after show. Let me click that off. All right, YouTube, we're going to say goodbye. Michael Scriven, thanks so much for being here. I hope you're having a great drive home. And don't forget to think about following us on DLive. The link is in the chat, pinned comment. And so YouTube, we will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye. Let me turn it off.